Volodymyr Oleksandrovych Zelenskyy, also transliterated as Zelensky or Zelensky, is a Ukrainian politician and former comedian and actor who has served as the sixth and current president of Ukraine since 2019. Born to a Ukrainian Jewish family, Zelensky grew up as a native Russian speaker in Kryvyi Rih, a major city of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast in central Ukraine. Prior to his acting career, he obtained a degree in law from the Kyiv National Economic University. He then pursued a career in comedy and created the production company Kvartal 95, which produced films, cartoons, and TV shows including the TV series Servant of the People, in which Zelensky played the role of the Ukrainian president. The series aired from 2015 to 2019 and was immensely popular. A political party bearing the same name as the television show was created in March 2018 by employees of Kvartal 95. Zelensky announced his candidacy in the 2019 Ukrainian presidential election on the evening of December 31, 2018, alongside the New Year's Eve address of then-President Petro Poroshenko on the TV channel 1+1. A political outsider, he had already become one of the frontrunners in opinion polls for the election. He won the election with 73.23% of the vote in the second round, defeating Poroshenko. He has positioned himself as an anti-establishment and anti-corruption figure. As president, Zelensky has been a proponent of e-government and of unity between the Ukrainian and Russian-speaking parts of the country's population. 1113 His communication style heavily uses social media, particularly Instagram. 710 His party won a landslide victory in the snap legislative election held shortly after his inauguration as president. During his administration, Zelensky oversaw the lifting of legal immunity for members of parliament, the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic recession, and some progress in tackling corruption in Ukraine. During his presidential campaign, Zelensky promised to end Ukraine's protracted conflict with Russia, and he has attempted to engage in dialogue with Russian President Vladimir Putin. His administration faced an escalation of tensions with Russia in 2021, culminating in the launch of the ongoing full-scale Russian invasion in February 2022. Zelensky's strategy during the Russian military buildup was to calm the Ukrainian populace and assure the international community that Ukraine was not seeking to retaliate. He initially distanced himself from warnings of an imminent war, while also calling for security guarantees and military support from NATO to withstand the threat. After the start of the invasion, Zelensky declared martial law across Ukraine and a general mobilization of the armed forces. His leadership during the crisis has won him widespread international praise, and he has been described as a symbol of the Ukrainian resistance. Social polls have ranked Zelensky among Ukraine's greatest presidents. Early life. Volodymyr Oleksandrovych Zelensky was born to Jewish parents on January 25, 1978 in Kryvyi Rih, then in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. His father, Oleksandr Zelensky, is a professor and computer scientist and the head of the Department of Cybernetics and Computing Hardware at the Kryvyi Rih State University of Economics and Technology. His mother, Rima Zelenska, used to work as an engineer. His grandfather, Semyon Ivanovich Zelensky, served as an infantryman, reaching the rank of colonel in the Red Army during World War II. Semyon's father and three brothers were killed in the Holocaust. In March 2022, Zelensky revealed that his great-grandparents had been killed after German troops burned their home to the ground during a massacre. Prior to starting elementary school, Zelensky lived for 4 years in the Mongolian city of Erdnut, where his father worked. Zelensky grew up speaking Russian. At the age of 16, he passed the test of English as a foreign language and received an education grant to study in Israel, but his father did not allow him to go. He later earned a law degree from the Kryvyi Rih Institute of Economics, then a department of Kyiv National Economic University and now part of Kryvyi Rih National University, but did not go on to work in the legal field. Entertainment career. At age 17, he joined his local team competing in the KVN comedy competition team. He was soon invited to join the United Ukrainian team Zaporizhzhia Kryvyi Rih Transit, which performed in the KVN's Major League and eventually won in 1997. That same year, he created and headed the Kvartal 95 team, which later transformed into the comedy outfit Kvartal 95. From 1998 to 2003, Kvartal 95 performed in the Major League and the highest open Ukrainian league of KVN, and the team members spent a lot of the time in Moscow and constantly toured around post-Soviet countries. In 2003, Kvartal 95 started producing TV shows for the Ukrainian TV channel 1+1, and in 2005, the team moved to fellow Ukrainian TV channel Interference. In 2008, he starred in the feature film Love in the Big City, and its sequel, Love in the Big City 2. Zelensky continued his movie career with the film Office Romance. Our Time in 2011 and with Rozhevsky vs. Napoleon in 2012. Love in the Big City 3 was released in January 2014. Zelensky also played the leading role in the 2012 film 8 First Dates and in sequels which were produced in 2015 and 2016. He recorded the voice of Paddington Bear in the Ukrainian dubbing of Paddington and Paddington 2. Zelensky was a member of the board and the general producer of the TV channel Inter from 2010 to 2012. In August 2014, Zelensky spoke out against the intention of the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture to ban Russian artists from Ukraine. Since 2015, Ukraine has banned Russian artists and other Russian works of culture from entering Ukraine. In 2018, the romantic comedy Love in the Big City 2 starring Zelensky was banned in Ukraine. After the Ukrainian media had reported that during the Russo-Ukrainian War Zelensky's Kvartal 95 had donated $1 million to the Ukrainian army, some Russian politicians and artists petitioned for a ban on his works in Russia. Once again, Zelensky spoke out against the intention of the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture to ban Russian artists from Ukraine. In 2015, Zelensky became the star of the television series Servant of the People, where he played the role of the President of Ukraine. In the series, Zelensky's character was a high school history teacher in his 30s who won the presidential election after a viral video showed him ranting against government corruption in Ukraine. The comedy series Svety, in which Zelensky appeared, was banned in Ukraine in 2017, but unbanned in March 2019. Zelensky worked mostly in Russian-language productions. His first role in the Ukrainian language was the romantic comedy I, You, He, She, which appeared on the screens of Ukraine in December 2018. The first version of the script was written in Ukrainian but was translated into Russian for the Lithuanian actress Anne Grudit. Later, the movie was dubbed into Ukrainian. The October 2021 Pandora Papers revealed that Zelensky and his chief aide and the head of the security service of Ukraine Ivan Bakanov operated a network of offshore companies in the British Virgin Islands, Cyprus, and Belize. These companies included some that owned expensive London property. Around the time of his 2019 election, Zelensky handed his shares in a key offshore company over to Sergei Shafir, but the two men appear to have made an arrangement for Zelensky's family to continue receiving the money from these companies. Zelensky's election campaign had centered on pledges to clean up the government of Ukraine. 2019 presidential campaign. In March 2018, members of Zelensky's production company Kvartal 95 registered a new political party called Servant of the People, the same name as the television program that Zelensky had starred in over the previous 3 years. Although Zelensky denied any immediate plans to enter politics and said he had only registered the party name to prevent it being appropriated by others, there was widespread speculation that he was planning to run. As early as October 2018, 3 months before his campaign announcement and 6 months before the presidential election, he was already a frontrunner in opinion polls. After months of ambiguous statements, on December 31, less than 4 months from the election, Zelensky announced his candidacy for President of Ukraine on the New Year's Eve evening show on the TV channel 1+1. His announcement upstaged the New Year's Eve address of incumbent President Petro Poroshenko on the same channel, which Zelensky said was unintentional and attributed to a technical glitch. Zelensky's presidential campaign against Poroshenko was almost entirely virtual. He did not release a detailed policy platform and his engagement with mainstream media was minimal. He instead reached out to the electorate via social media channels and YouTube clips. In place of traditional campaign rallies, he conducted stand-up comedy routines across Ukraine with his production company Kvartal 95. He styled himself as an anti-establishment, anti-corruption figure, although he was not generally described as a populist. He said he wished to restore trust in politicians, to bring professional, decent people to power and to change the mood and timbre of the political establishment. On April 16, 2019, a few days before the election, 20 Ukrainian news outlets called on Zelensky to stop avoiding journalists. Zelensky stated that he was not hiding from journalists but that he did not want to go to talk shows where people of the old power were just doing PR and that he did not have time to satisfy all interview requests. Prior to the elections, Zelensky presented a team that included former Finance Minister Oleksandr Danylyuk and others. During the campaign, concerns were raised over his links to the oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky. President Poroshenko and his supporters claimed that Zelensky's victory would benefit Russia. On April 19, 2019 at Olympijski National Sports Complex, presidential debates were held in the form of a show. In his introductory speech, Zelensky acknowledged that in 2014 he voted for Poroshenko, but I was mistaken. We were mistaken. We voted for one Poroshenko, but received another. The first appears when there are video cameras, the other Petro sends Medvedchuk privy to key to Moscow. Although Zelensky initially said he would only serve a single term, he walked back this promise in May 2021, saying he had not yet made up his mind. Zelensky stated that as president he would develop the economy and attract investment to Ukraine through a restart of the judicial system and restoring confidence in the state. He also proposed a tax amnesty and a 5% flat tax for big business which could be increased in dialogue with them and if everyone agrees. According to Zelensky, if people would notice that his new government works honestly from the first day, they would start paying their taxes. Zelensky clearly won the first round of elections on March 31, 2019. In the second round, on April 21, 2019, he received 73% of the vote to Poroshenko's 25% and was elected President of Ukraine. Polish President Andrzej Duda was one of the first European leaders to congratulate Zelensky. French President Emmanuel Macron received Zelensky at the Élysée Palace in Paris on April 12, 2019. On April 22, U.S. President Donald Trump congratulated Zelensky on his victory over the telephone. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and European Council President Donald Tusk also issued a joint letter of congratulations and stated that the European Union will work to speed up the implementation of the remainder of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, including the deep and comprehensive free trade area. Presidency. Zelensky was inaugurated on May 20, 2019. Various foreign officials attended the ceremony in Ukraine's parliament, including Salome Zurabishvili, Kirsty Kaljulaid, Raymond Zvijonis, Dalia Grybauskite, Yano Shader, Miro Fov, and Rick Perry. Zelensky is the first Jewish president. With Volodymyr Groysman as prime minister, Ukraine became the first country other than Israel to simultaneously have a Jewish head of state and head of government. In his inaugural address, Zelensky dissolved the then Ukrainian parliament and called for early parliamentary elections. One of Zelenskyy's coalition partners, the People's Front, opposed the move and withdrew from the ruling coalition. On May 28, Zelensky restored the Ukrainian citizenship of Mikhail Saakashvili. Zelenskyy's first major proposal to change the electoral system from a plurality voting system to proportional representation with closed party lists was strongly rejected by the Ukrainian parliament, due to the belief that closed lists would lead to more corruption in government. In addition, on June 6, lawmakers refused to include Zelenskyy's key initiative on reintroducing criminal liability for illegal enrichment in the parliament's agenda, and instead included a similar bill proposed by a group of deputies. In June 2019 it was announced that the president's third major initiative, which seeks to remove immunity from lawmakers, diplomats, and judges, would be submitted after the July 2019 Ukrainian parliamentary election. This initiative was completed on September 3, when the new parliament passed a bill stripping lawmakers of legal immunity, delivering Zelensky a legislative victory by fulfilling one of his key campaign promises. On July 8, Zelensky ordered the cancellation of the annual Kyiv Independence Day parade on Maidan Nezalezhnosti, citing costs. Despite this, Zelensky highlighted that the day would honor heroes on Independence Day. However, the format will be new. He also proposed to spend the money that would have been used to finance the parade on veterans. In 2020, Zelenskyy's party proposed reforms to Ukraine's media laws with the intent to increase competition and loosen the dominance of Ukrainian oligarchs on television and radio broadcasters. Critics said it risked increasing media censorship in Ukraine because its clause of criminal responsibility for the distribution of disinformation could be abused. Zelensky was criticized for a secret trip to Oman in January 2020 that was not published on his official schedule and on which he appeared to mix a personal holiday with government business. Although the president's office said the trip had been paid for by Zelensky himself and not with government money, Zelensky came under heavy criticism for the lack of transparency around the trip, which was compared unfavorably to a secret vacation his predecessor Petro Poroshenko took in the Maldives, and which Zelensky himself had criticized at the time. In January 2021, Parliament passed a bill updating and reforming Ukraine's referendum laws, which Ukraine's constitutional court had declared unconstitutional in 2018. Fixing the referendum law had been one of Zelenskyy's campaign promises. In June 2021, Zelensky submitted to the Verkhovna Rada a bill creating a public registry of Ukraine's oligarchs, banning them from participating in privatizations of state-owned companies, and forbidding them from contributing financially to politicians. Opposition party leaders supported Zelenskyy's goal of reducing oligarchs' influence on politics in Ukraine but were critical of his approach, saying the public register would be both dangerous, as it concentrated power in the president, and ineffective, since oligarchs were merely a symbol of more deeply rooted corruption. The bill was passed into law in September 2021. Critics of Zelenskyy's administration have claimed that, in taking power away from the Ukrainian oligarchs, he has sought to centralize authority and strengthen his personal position. Cabinets and administration. Zelensky appointed Andriy Bodin as head of the presidential administration of Ukraine. Prior to this, Bodin had been the lawyer of Ukrainian oligarch Ihor Kolomoisky. Under the rules of Lust ration in Ukraine, introduced in 2014 following Euromaidan, Bodin is not entitled to hold any state office until 2024. Bodin, however, contended that because heading the presidential administration is not considered civil service work, Lust ration did not apply to him. A number of the members of the presidential administration Zelensky appointed were former colleagues from his former production company, Kvartal 95, including Ivan Bakanov, who became deputy head of the Ukrainian Secret Service. Former Deputy Foreign Minister Olena Zerkal declined an appointment as deputy head of the presidential administration, but did agree to serve as the Ukrainian representative of the international courts concerning Russia. Zelenskyy's requests to replace the foreign minister, defense minister, chief prosecutor, and head of Ukraine's security service were rejected by parliament. Zelensky also dismissed and replaced 20 of the governors of Ukraine's 24 oblasts. Honcharuk government. Shmyhal government. Attempts to end the Donbas conflict. One of Zelenskyy's central campaign promises had been to end the Russo-Ukrainian war and resolve the Russia-sponsored separatist movement there. On June 3, Zelensky appointed former President Leonid Kuchma as Ukraine's representative in the tripartite contact group for a settlement in the conflict. On July 11, 2019, Zelensky held his first telephone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, during which he urged Putin to enter into talks mediated by European countries. The two leaders also discussed the exchange of prisoners held by both sides. In October 2019, Zelensky announced a preliminary deal struck with the separatists, under which the Ukrainian government would respect elections held in the region in exchange for Russia withdrawing its unmarked troops. The deal was met with heavy criticism and protests by both politicians and the Ukrainian public. Detractors noted that elections held in Donbas were unlikely to be free and fair, that the separatists had long driven out most pro-Ukrainian residents out of the region to ensure a pro-Russia majority, and that it would be impossible to ensure Russia kept its end of the agreement. Zelensky defended his negotiations, saying the elections would not be held before a Russian withdrawal. The agreement failed to ease the conflict, as the separatists continued their attacks and Russia continued providing them with weapons and ammunition. Several Ukrainian nationalist militias and former militias also refused to accept the agreement, including the far-right Azov fighters in the Luhansk region of Donbas. Zelensky met personally with some of these groups and tried to convince them to surrender their unregistered weapons and accept the peace accord. Andriy Bielitsky, the leader of the far-right National Corps and first commander of Azov, accused Zelensky of being disrespectful to army veterans and of acting on behalf of the Kremlin by leaving Ukrainians vulnerable to Russian aggression. Ultimately, the peace deal failed to reduce the violence, much less end the war. In December 2019, Russia and Ukraine agreed to resume talks mediated by France and Germany under the so-called Normandy format, which had been abandoned in 2016. It was Zelensky's first face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin. In July 2020, Zelensky announced a formal ceasefire with the separatists, the more than 20th such attempt since the war began in 2014. Although the ceasefire was frequently violated over the next few years and overall violence remained high, ceasefire violations in 2020 did decrease by over 50% compared to the previous year. UIA Flight 752. On January 8, 2020, the presidential office announced that Volodymyr Zelensky was cutting his trip to Oman short owing to the Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 plane crash in nearby Iran the same day. The same day, internet news site obozirivatel.com released information that on January 7, 2020, Ukrainian politician of the opposition Platform for Life Viktor Medvedchuk, who has exclusive relations with the current president of Russia, may have arrived in Oman. Soon, rumors began that Zelensky may have had some additional meetings beside the ones that were announced. On January 14, 2020, Andriy Yermak dismissed the rumors as speculations and baseless conspiracy theories, while Medvedchuk stated that the plane was used by his older daughter's family to fly from Oman to Moscow. Later, Yermak contacted the online newspaper Ukrainian Truth and gave more details about the visit to Oman and the plane crash in Iran. On January 17, 2020, the presidential appointee Minister of Foreign Affairs Vadim Prystaiko was unable to give answers during the times of questions to the government in Parliament when the People's Deputies of Ukraine asked him about the visit's official agenda, the invitation from Oman, officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who were preparing the visit, as well as how the president actually crossed the border while visiting Oman. On January 20, 2020, Prystaiko followed up by giving a briefing to the press in the office of the President of Ukraine and saying that he would explain everything about the visit that when the time came. Foreign relations. Zelenskyy's first official trip abroad as president was to Brussels in June 2019, where he met with European Union and NATO officials. In August 2019, Zelensky promised to lift the moratorium on exhuming Polish mass graves in Ukraine after the previous Ukrainian government banned the Polish side from carrying out any exhumations of Polish victims of the Ukrainian insurgent army perpetrated Volhynian massacres, following the removal of a memorial to the Ukrainian insurgent army in Hrusowice, southeastern Poland. In September 2019, it was reported that U.S. President Donald Trump had allegedly blocked payment of a congressionally mandated $400 million military aid package to Ukraine to pressure Zelensky during a July phone call between the two presidents to investigate alleged wrongdoing by Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, who took a board seat on Ukrainian natural gas company Burisma Holdings. This report was the catalyst for the Trump-Ukraine scandal and the impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump. Zelensky has denied that he was pressured by Trump and declared that he does not want to interfere in a foreign election. On a trip to the United States in September 2021, Zelensky engaged in talks and commitments with U.S. President Joe Biden, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. President Zelensky and First Lady Olena Zelenska also took part in the opening of the Ukrainian House in Washington, D.C. On the same trip, he met with Apple CEO Tim Cook and with Ukrainians in senior positions at Silicon Valley tech companies and spoke at Stanford University. While Zelensky was still in the U.S., just after delivering a speech at the United Nations, an assassination attempt was made in Ukraine on Serhiy Shafir, his closest aide. Shafir was unhurt in the attack, although his driver was hospitalized with 3 bullet wounds. 2021-2022 Russo-Ukrainian crisis. In April 2021, in response to Russian military buildup at the Ukrainian borders, Zelensky spoke to American President Joe Biden and urged NATO members to speed up Ukraine's request for membership. On November 26, 2021, Zelensky accused Russia and Ukrainian oligarch Rinat Akhmetov of backing a plan to overthrow his government. Russia denied any involvement in a coup plot, and Akhmetov said in a statement that the information made public by Volodymyr Zelensky about attempts to draw me into some kind of coup is an absolute lie. I am outraged by the spread of this lie, no matter what the president's motives are. In December 2021, Zelensky called for preemptive action against Russia. On January 19, 2022, Zelensky said in a video message that the country's citizens should not panic and appealed to the media to be methods of mass information and not mass hysteria. On January 28, Zelensky called on the West not to create a panic in his country over a potential Russian invasion, adding that constant warnings of an imminent threat of invasion are putting the economy of Ukraine at risk. Zelensky said that we do not see a bigger escalation than in early 2021 when Russia's military build-up started. Zelensky and U.S. President Joe Biden disagreed on how imminent the threat was. On February 19, as worries of a Russian invasion of Ukraine grew, Zelensky warned the Munich Security Conference that Western nations should abandon their appeasement attitude toward Moscow. Ukraine has been granted security assurances in exchange for giving up the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal. We don't have any firearms. And there's no security. But we have a right to urge a transformation from an appeasement policy to one that ensures security and peace, he stated. In the early hours of February 24, shortly before the start of the Russian invasion, Zelensky recorded an address to the citizens of both Ukraine and Russia. He disputed claims of the Russian government about the presence of neo-Nazis in the Ukrainian government and stated that he had no intention of attacking the Donbas region, while highlighting his personal connections to the area. In part of the address, he spoke in Russian to the people of Russia, appealing to them to pressure their leadership to prevent war. The speech was widely described as emotional and astonishing. 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. On the morning of February 24, Putin announced that Russia was initiating a special military operation in the Donbas. Russian missiles struck a number of military targets in Ukraine, and Zelensky declared martial law. Zelensky also announced that diplomatic relations with Russia were being severed, effective immediately. Later in the day, he announced general mobilization. On February 25, Zelensky said that despite Russia's claim that it was targeting only military sites, civilian sites were also being hit. In an early morning address that day, Zelensky said that his intelligence services had identified him as Russia's top target, but that he is staying in Kyiv and his family will remain in the country. They want to destroy Ukraine politically by destroying the head of state, he said. In the early hours of February 26, during the most significant assault by Russian troops on the capital of Kyiv, the United States government and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan urged Zelensky to evacuate to a safer location, and both offered assistance for such an effort. Zelensky turned down both offers and opted to remain in Kyiv with its defense forces, saying that the fight is here, I need ammunition, not a ride. More than 90% of Ukrainians supported the actions of Zelensky, including more than 90% in western and central Ukraine and more than 80% in Russian-speaking regions in eastern and southern Ukraine. A Pew Research Center poll found that 72% of Americans had confidence in Zelensky's handling of international affairs. Zelensky has gained worldwide recognition as the wartime leader of Ukraine during the Russian invasion. Historian Andrew Roberts compared him to Winston Churchill. Harvard Political Review said that Zelensky has harnessed the power of social media to become history's first truly online wartime leader, bypassing traditional gatekeepers as he uses the internet to reach out to the people. He has been described as a national hero or a global hero by many commentators, including publications such as The Hill, Deutsche Welle, Der Spiegel, and USA Today. BBC News and The Guardian have reported that his response to the invasion has received praise even from previous critics. During the invasion, Zelensky has been reportedly the target of more than a dozen assassination attempts. 3 were prevented due to tips from Russian FSB employees who opposed the invasion. 2 of those attempts were carried out by the Wagner Group, a Russian paramilitary force, and the third by the Kadyrovites, the personal guard of Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov. While speaking about Ukrainian civilians who were killed by Russian forces, Zelensky said, on March 7, 2022, Czech President Milo Zeman decided to award Zelensky with the highest state award of the Czech Republic, the Order of the White Lion, for his bravery and courage in the face of Russia's invasion. Zelensky has repeatedly called for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying, "Good Lord, what do you want? Leave our land. If you don't want to leave now, sit down with me at the negotiating table. But not from 30 meters away, like with Macron and Scholz. I don't bite." Zelensky said he was 99.9% sure that Putin thought the Ukrainians would welcome the invading forces with flowers and smiles. On March 7, 2022, as a condition for ending the invasion, the Kremlin demanded Ukraine's neutrality, recognition of Crimea, which had been annexed by Russia, as Russian territory, and recognition of the self-proclaimed separatist republics of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent states. On March 8, Zelensky expressed willingness to discuss Putin's demands. Zelensky said he is ready for dialogue, but not for capitulation. He proposed a new collective security agreement for Ukraine with the United States, Turkey, France, Germany as an alternative to the country joining NATO. Zelensky's Servant of the People Party said that Ukraine would not give up its claims on Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk. However, Zelensky said that Ukraine was considering giving the Russian language protected minority status. On March 15, 2022, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, together with Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala and Slovenian Prime Minister Janez Janša, visited Kyiv to meet with Zelensky in a display of support for Ukraine. On March 16, 2022, a deep fake appeared online of Zelensky calling on Ukrainian citizens to surrender to Russia. The attack was largely deemed to have failed at its intended goal. The video is considered to be the first use of deep fake technology in a global-scale disinformation attack. Zelensky has made an effort to rally the governments of Western nations in an effort to isolate Russia. He has made numerous addresses to the legislatures of the EU, UK, Poland, Australia, Canada, US, Germany, Israel, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Romania, and the Nordic countries. On March 23, Zelensky was calling on Russians to emigrate from Russia so as not to finance the war in Ukraine with their taxes. In March 2022, Zelensky supported the suspension of 11 Ukrainian political parties with ties to Russia: the Socialist Party of Ukraine, Derzhava, Left Opposition, Nashi, Opposition Bloc, Opposition Platform for Life, Party of Sharii, Progressive Socialist Party of Ukraine, Union of Leftists, and the Volodymyr Saldo Bloc. The Communist Party of Ukraine, another pro-Russia party, had already been banned in 2015 because of its support to the Donbas separatists. Zelensky has also supported consolidating all TV news stations into a single 24-hour news broadcast run by the state of Ukraine. In April 2022, he criticized Germany's ties with Russia. In May 2022, Zelensky said that Ukrainian men of conscription age had a duty to remain in Ukraine and that up to 100 Ukrainian soldiers were killed every day in the fighting in eastern Ukraine. He made the comment after he was asked about an online petition calling to lift a prohibition on Ukrainian men leaving Ukraine. As Zelensky ordered a general military mobilization in February 2022, he also banned men ages 18 to 60 from leaving Ukraine. In early June 2022, Zelensky's advisor Mikhailo Podolyak said that up to 200 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in combat every day. Zelensky denounced suggestions by former U.S. diplomat Henry Kissinger that Ukraine should cede control of Crimea and Donbas to Russia in exchange for peace. On May 25, 2022, he said that Ukraine would not agree to peace until Russia agreed to return Crimea and the Donbas region to Ukraine. However, he later said he did not believe that all the land seized by Russia since 2014, which includes Crimea, could be recaptured by force, saying that if we decide to go that way, we will lose hundreds of thousands of people. On May 3, 2022, Zelensky accused Turkey of having double standards by welcoming Russian tourists while attempting to act as an intermediary between Russia and Ukraine in order to end the war. On May 25, 2022, Zelensky said that he was satisfied with China's policy of staying away from the conflict. In August 2022, he said China had the economic leverage to pressure Putin to end the war, adding, "I'm sure that without the Chinese market for the Russian Federation, Russia would be feeling complete economic isolation. That's something that China can do to limit the trade until the war is over." According to Zelensky, since the beginning of the invasion, Chinese President Xi Jinping had refused to speak with him. On May 30, 2022, Zelensky criticized EU leaders for being too soft on Russia and asked, "Why can Russia still earn almost €1 billion a day by selling energy?" The study published by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air calculates that the EU paid Russia about €56 billion for fossil fuel deliveries in the 3 months following the start of Russia's invasion. On June 20, 2022, Zelensky addressed African Union representatives via video conference. He invited African leaders for virtual meeting but only 4 of them attended. On July 20, 2022, South America's Mercosur trade bloc refused Zelensky's request to speak at the trade bloc's summit in Paraguay. Speaking about the 2022 Russian mobilization, Zelensky called on Russians to not submit to criminal mobilization, saying, "Russian commanders do not care about the lives of Russians, they just need to replenish the empty spaces left by killed and wounded Russian soldiers." Following Putin's announcement of Russia annexing 4 regions of Ukrainian territory it had seized during its invasion, Zelensky announced that Ukraine would not hold peace talks with Russia while Putin was president. On September 25, 2022, Zelensky said that Putin's threats to use nuclear weapons could be a reality. He added that Putin wants to scare the whole world with nuclear blackmail. He also said that Putin is aware that the world will never forgive a Russian nuclear strike. When asked what kind of relationship Ukrainians and Ukraine will have with Russia after the war, Zelensky replied that they took too many people, too many lives. The society will not forgive them, adding that it will be the choice of our society whether to talk to them, or not to talk at all, and for how many years, tens of years or more. Political views. Economic issues. In a mid-June interview with Byhus Info, a representative of the President of Ukraine at the Cabinet of Ministers, Andriy Harris stated that Zelensky had never promised to lower communal tariffs, but that a campaign video in which Zelensky stated that the price of natural gas in Ukraine could fall by 20–30% or maybe more was not a direct promise but actually half hinting and joking. Zelensky's election manifesto mentioned tariffs only once, that money raised from a capital amnesty would go towards lowering the tariff burden on low-income citizens. Foreign policy. During his presidential campaign, Zelensky said that he supported Ukraine's becoming a member of the European Union and NATO, but he said Ukrainian voters should decide on the country's membership of these 2 organizations in referendums. At the same time, he believed that the Ukrainian people had already chosen Euro integration. Zelensky's close advisor Ivan Bakanov also said that Zelensky's policy is supportive of membership of both the EU and NATO, and proposes holding referendums on membership. Zelensky's electoral program claimed that Ukrainian NATO membership is the choice of the Maidan and the course that is enshrined in the constitution. In addition, it is an instrument for strengthening our defense capability. The program states that Ukraine should set the goal to apply for a NATO membership action plan in 2024. The program also states that Zelensky will do everything to ensure that Ukraine can apply for European Union membership in 2024. 2 days before the second round, Zelensky stated that he wanted to build a strong, powerful, free Ukraine, which is not the younger sister of Russia, which is not a corrupt partner of Europe, but our independent Ukraine. In October 2020, he spoke in support of Azerbaijan in regards to the Nagorno-Karabakh war between Azerbaijan and ethnic Armenians over the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Zelensky said, "We support Azerbaijan's territorial integrity and sovereignty just as Azerbaijan always supports our territorial integrity and sovereignty." In February 2022, he applied for Ukraine to join the European Union. Zelensky has tried to position Ukraine as a neutral party in the political and trade tensions between the United States and China. In January 2021, Zelensky said in an interview with Axios that he does not perceive China as a geopolitical threat and that he does not agree with the United States' assertions that it represents one. Russo-Ukrainian War. Government reform. During the presidential campaign, Zelensky promised bills to fight corruption, including removal of immunity from the president of the country, members of the Verkhovna Rada and judges, a law about impeachment, reform of election laws, and providing efficient trial by jury. He promised to bring the salary for military personnel to the level of NATO standards. Although Zelensky prefers elections with open-list election ballots, after he called the snap 2019 Ukrainian parliamentary election his draft law on amendments to some laws of Ukraine in connection with the change of the electoral system for the election of people's deputies proposed to hold the election with closed list because the 60-day term to the snap election did not leave any chances for the introduction of this system. Social issues. Zelensky opposed targeting the Russian language in Ukraine and banning artists for their political opinions. In April 2019, he stated that he was not against a Ukrainian language quota, although he noted they could be tweaked. He also said that Russian artists who have turned into politicians should remain banned from entering Ukraine. In responding to a petition demanding equal rights for same-sex couples, Zelensky echoed the view that family does not depend on sex and asked the Prime Minister of Ukraine to review civil partnerships for same-sex couples. With regards to same-sex marriage, Zelensky cited a provision in the Constitution of Ukraine barring same-sex marriage, as well as a ban on wartime changes to the constitution, ruling out an introduction of same-sex marriages during the ongoing war. Civil rights organizations praised the statement, though criticizing its vagueness, as Zelensky eschewed details about legal proposals for civil partnerships. Personal life. In September 2003, Zelensky married Olena Kyashko, with whom he had attended school and university. Kyashko worked as a scriptwriter at Kvartal 95. The couple's first daughter, Alexandra, was born in July 2004. Their son, Kyrilo, was born in January 2013. In Zelensky's 2014 movie 8 New Dates, their daughter played Sasha, the daughter of the protagonist. In 2016, she participated in the show The Comedy Comet Company Comedies Kids and 150000. The family lives in Kyiv. Zelensky's first language is Russian, and he is also fluent in Ukrainian and English. His assets were worth about $37 million in 2018. Awards and decorations. On March 27, 2022, Slovakia awarded Zelensky one of the country's top awards, the State Award of Alexander Dubček. Eduard Heger, the Slovak Prime Minister, compared the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 to the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. Zelensky has been called by the Times of Israel the Jewish defender of Ukrainian democracy. Gal Beckerman of The Atlantic described Zelensky as having the world a Jewish hero. Ukraine, honorary diploma of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Czech Republic, Order of the White Lion, First Class. Latvia, Commander of Grand Cross of the Order of Vystyurs. Lithuania, Order of Vytautas the Great with the Golden Chain. Poland, Jan Karski Eagle Award. Slovakia, State Award of Alexander Dubček. United Kingdom, Sir Winston Churchill Leadership Award. United States, Ronald Reagan Freedom Award. John F. Kennedy Profile in Courage Award. Philadelphia Liberty Medal. Selected filmography. Films.